You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/The Options Insider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.
Join us now for the expert source for inside information on the options markets. It's time for Options Insider Radio with your host, Mark Longo.
All right, everybody. That music means it's time once again for Options Insider Radio, the interview program here on the old network, where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of options and derivatives and sometimes beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. My name is Mark Longo, like the man said, and I am pleased to be joined on the old program today by a newcomer to the show and indeed to the network. He is Morgan Slade, the CEO and CIO, dual C's over there at CloudQuant. Morgan, welcome to the Options Insider Radio program.
Mark, thank you. Happy to be here.
And Morgan, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a little bit of an overview of your background and how you found your way to starting CloudQuant?
Sure, absolutely. Well, about 22 years ago, I started out as an engineering student at MIT, and there were a number of our really fraternity brothers who had graduated a few years earlier and started a company called O'Connor and Associates. And I saw them, they'd come back for reunions and things like that. And I heard stories about, what it was like in the trading pits, and just kind of fell in love with the idea of getting into trading. And so after I finished my engineering degree and I did a little bit of engineering for Intel and Motorola, I went back to graduate school at MIT and finished that up, and then headed down to New York and started trading for a firm called Milburn Richfield, which is one of the oldest CTAs in the world. And they ran about a $15 billion futures book, and I was one of their traders. They had about a dozen traders that managed their systematic portfolio. And I ended up trading in all kind of 3 major time zones, trading pretty much any listed futures contract or options on futures contract that you could find. In pretty large size, so I got a good sense for market impact and things like that very early in my career, and then I moved on to run the Stat Arb group at Merrill Lynch on the equity side in New York, and ever since then I've been trying different things that interested me. So I ran a long short book for Carlson Capital in Texas, and then for the last before joining starting CloudQuant here. I had been focused on high frequency market making at Citadel and a few other firms here in Chicago. So I've done a few different things, and try and use, all the different buckets of knowledge that I've tried to accumulate, to our current project here at CloudQuant, where we're basically democratizing the ability to be a hedge fund analyst so that really anybody with an internet connection can contribute to our investment process for our fund and be compensated in the same ways that somebody who went to a top school and went through the recruiting process and made it through somehow and got the hedge fund analyst position would be compensated. But rather than having to jump through all those hoops, you can just show up and contribute your ideas, and it's a meritocracy. So.
Yeah, it's an interesting platform. I was checking it out before you came on. It's kind of sounds like it has multiple different facets to it. It has, of course, you mentioned the kind of, as the name implies, kind of connecting quants to funding. You also have an educational kind of outreach, a bit of a community is there as well as technology. You kind of gave us the broad strokes. Give us a quick dive into CloudQuant. I believe you guys spun it off from a trading group. Is that correct?
That's right. The kernel of the idea came from Kirshner Trading Group and Andy Kirshner. They've been trading for over a quarter century. Started out as SOS traders down in Texas, and now they have offices in Austin and New York and here in Chicago. They started working on better ways to model ideas that they came up with as they were looking at the markets and watching them all day long. And they built tools to try and identify opportunities that they felt like had edge. And as they started putting this together, they realized this is very difficult. This really shouldn't be so hard, but it is. We probably want to make something that we could reuse for other purposes. And wouldn't it be great if we could let really anybody who has the time and interest, use these tools to try and find alpha and try and find edge. And so that was really the crux of the idea behind CloudQuant. And since then, we've added to our team. We've started doing a lot of machine learning and lots of alternative data sets have been added to the platform. We have trading quote data back to 1993 now, so you can actually get the high frequency data and simulate something that's fairly high frequency with our research tools. And we have a whole team of people internally who use that. Some of them are discretionary traders. Some of them are kind of hybrid traders who use both discretion and systematic means. And some of them are purely systematic. And we try and build tools that all of them need to make money every day. For our fund, we've actually broken the investment process up into smaller pieces. We recognize that it's very hard to build a complete trading strategy that's completely automated. And not that many people have that complete skill set. So we offer that for the people who are experienced and can do that. They can certainly do that. We've licensed a half a dozen strategies in the last year that have a capacity of about 100 million. And we share in the profits with them. We pay them a royalty of up to 10% of the trading P&L. In addition, we also offer opportunities for people to just, develop trading signals. It may just be, something that says buy now or sell now, and something as simple as that. We can feed that into our machine learning process, and if it helps us predict what's going to happen next, then we'll figure out, how helpful it is, and we'll pay you a portion of the profits based on how helpful it is.
So, Morgan, I don't think I'm breaking any news to you when I say that you're in a somewhat competitive field, shall we say. We just had the guys, it was Jared and his team from, Quant Connect. There's so many coming on. There are quite a few out there in this space. So what would you say is it that really sets you guys apart from it's a hot space right now. What is it that sets you apart from the other entrants in that space?
Sure, that's a great question. And, we ask ourselves that, years ago, how are we going to differentiate ourselves? I mean, one thing that's different is, we trade every day. We make money every year, and so at the end of the day, I think a lot of our decisions and our ability to work with new people who are trying to get into the industry, or people who are experienced and are looking for funding, is an ability to understand each other and to help each other. And our team, we are used to using our techniques to analyze new strategies, to fund them, and to ramp them up. This is not a theoretical thing for us. This is something we do internally every day. And I think if you look at, on a low level at each one of our competitors, most of them kind of lack the trading acumen. They're not actually using it every day to trade. They're not managing money for anybody. And so it's a little bit harder because they're kind of in some cases trying to identify strategies that should work in theory without knowing in practice what's likely to happen. And so I think, having worked in high frequency market making for a long time helps with a lot of the transaction cost issues and market impact. And I think that having so many proprietary traders that we have, working internally that also use the platform, we kind of know where the bodies are buried in terms of what will and will not work. A second difference is some of these platforms like Quant Connect is really a platform as a service or a software as a service. They're not really in the business of managing money and funding things directly. They're in the business of providing, selling the arms.
Yeah, that's something that kind of leapt out to me as I was looking over your offerings. There's a lot of platforms out there to connect quants with capital and traders with capital. There's, of course, you mentioned Quant Connect. There's a Jack Schwager and his Fund Seeder platform they were on a few months back as well, trying to find and line up new prospective traders with sources of capital. You guys taking a little bit different route. You're actually funding these quants yourselves to the tune of, is it $72 million now you guys have allocated?
Yeah, that's right. That's the capacity for the strategies we've licensed. And, we obviously are not going to just, pour the money into the strategies blindly. We take some time to ramp them up and let them bake. But as we, get more experience with them and as our risk allocation system finds that they're outperforming other strategies, then that's what their capacity would be. And I think, one of the things to keep in mind is it's very difficult to build a platform for traders to say, to get funding when everybody has a different way of doing things. So one of the things we've done is standardize a way of measuring your backtests. And we have very detailed reports that we generate automatically for every single study that somebody does that allows me or someone else to look at somebody when they request funding, to look at their backtest and say, okay, I understand what you're doing here. I can't see your code, but I can see what the results of your backtest are. And, I understand all the different metrics here, looking at drawdowns, looking at biases that you have, looking at factor exposures. And I can understand, what kinds of characteristics from a risk management standpoint your strategy has. And then we can go to the next step of, talking about, what is the capacity of it? And we have ways of actually doing backtests with the high frequency data to try and infer what the capacity might be based on our impact modeling.
That's obviously a good point because people are coming at you with so many different strategies. You need some sort of baseline metric, right, to be able to analyze one. And there's certain things, obviously, like Sharpe ratios and others, but you can go beyond that to really try to create some sort of custom metric. It sounds like you guys have done just that. I'm curious, obviously, you've allocated $72 million, so you've put a fair amount of capital behind these strategies. What are the types of strategies you're being approached with right now? Are they primarily long, short equity? Is there a healthy mix? Are there futures? Are there options in there? What are the types of things that are trading on your platform and you guys have funded right now?
Well, I think recently a lot of the strategies have been kind of short biased. I think that...
Why would that possibly be? I don't understand, sir.
Well, in this case, a lot of the strategies, people have come up with recently have been, selling stocks short and finding things to sell short.
That was a joke. My humor obviously falls flat there.
So, I think, we really trade primarily equities. And so obviously, that market has been hit. I mean, maybe some of the commodities, we've seen a little bit of a bid in a few things like interest rates and things like that. But, for us equity guys, it has been a rough couple of months. And so a lot of the strategies people are coming up with, because it's kind of top of mind, is how do I sell short to make money in this market? Other things that seem interesting are strategies having to do with trading ETFs. And I think that, that's for a reason. We're in a kind of a different regime here, and I'm not sure that it's going to change anytime soon. So as we look at the types of things that are working now, they aren't the things that were working, during the 10-year bull market. So
obviously we have options in the name, so I'm legally obligated to ask you, are you getting hit up with any interesting options or derivatives-oriented strategies these days?
We do have some strategies that we've looked at that use options data that look at the implied vols and look at closing, settlement prices and things like that. We don't trade options on our platform yet. I'm sorry to say. We certainly would love to do that and are building to be able to do things like that in the future. But right now, a lot of the options, the things that have to do with options that we touch have to do with feeding them into other models that are trading the underlying Delta One product.
Now, you've mentioned data a few times here, and that's obviously a key component of any sort of quant offering. People want to come to you. They have strategies. You want to backtest them. I'm sure they want to backtest them as well. What types of data do you offer, and do you charge for that? How does that work if someone's coming to you for the first time saying, I have this fantastic strategy, but I need to backtest it with, minute by minute data on SPX, something crazy like that? How would that work?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, we have two different types of people coming to us right now because of our platform. We have a lot of alternative data vendors coming to us and saying, can you showcase my data set by showing how to do a backtest that looks, good? Can you implement our white paper that we use for our marketing on your platform with a public script, strategy that everybody can see if they log into your platform and play around with, so that they can essentially test out my data set on your platform and decide if they want to buy it. So that's one conversation we're having. So we have a lot of those. And there are, 1,500 data sets out there. According to Eagle Alpha, there's going to be 5,000 within a couple of years. There just aren't enough people to even look at these at this point, and the sales process can be very difficult for the data vendors. The second group of people are people who are experienced traders who have a strategy that they developed off of our platform because, they worked on it at home or they developed it on their own from, someplace they worked in the past. And they say, I have good results, but it's not in the format you're used to seeing. We've actually developed an API that allows them to, generate their trading signals with timestamps. And because we have high frequency tick data, we can actually replicate their strategy without knowing anything about the underlying, trading signal process. We can replicate their strategy and backtest it on CloudQuant anyway. And we can give them the same report as if they had ported all of their logic to CloudQuant. And so then we can sit down and have a conversation about funding with them.
That's interesting. Now, and is that free? Is there cost to, if someone wants more involved data than others? Are there tiers of cost for that, or is that all part of the onboarding and application process?
Well, we don't, you certainly can't download data from CloudQuant because we're not a redistributor. What we do allow you to do is really test it out and get your hands dirty. And we do allow you to, request funding. And so, whether it's an alternative data set you're looking at, you're not going to be able to download it, but you can run studies and figure out if there's any alpha there, any trading signals that are worth looking at there. And that's all free because we actually keep the data behind our firewall. We let you write your code and then you ship your code into the private cluster where the data lives, and your code is actually executed against the data, and then the performance reports are sent back to you. So, in other words, from a data vendor standpoint, their data is protected, and so they're willing to let you have access to their data without actually touching it, if that makes any sense.
That seems to be a great end run around the high cost of market data that a lot of firms are doing. You can access it, you can get all the reports you want, but limiting it to not downloading it does seem to keep things more manageable on the cost side for everyone involved. Speaking of the cost side, and that's a frequent complaint we hear, in our neck of the woods and certainly in your space as well, the cost of access to market data is a huge impediment to a lot of startups that want to play in this arena. We hear this a lot, particularly from firms that maybe start more on the tech side and then dip their toes into the trading world. They're stunned that market data isn't all freely available and open to them.
That's right.
They come from a much different, shall we say, more open philosophy than we see in the very siloed trading and financial world. Is that an impediment for you guys as well? Is that keeping people from coming to your platform? And maybe on the flip side, maybe is that a pro for you guys, a driver? People are coming to you. Maybe they're, the cliche quant in their basement, kind of doing it on the side, and they've been prohibited in the past from having access to expensive data, but they can come through your platform and backtest their platform, and it actually is maybe a little bit of an incentive for them to come try it out. So how has that worked out for you guys? Is the cost of data an impediment to growth, or is it starting to drive people to you, ironically?
Well, we actually are, it's kind of flipped around for us because we can showcase data sets for people. We have people asking us to showcase their data, and we don't pay a thing for it. There are obviously exchanges that aren't going to do something like that with us, and that's why we have to, go to great lengths to make sure that the data is protected and it's only the source code that gets run against it, and then some derived product gets shipped back to the end user. Because we don't have any costs associated with using CloudQuant, it's actually a huge advantage for us because we're letting people do things that they'd normally only be able to do if they work for a top hedge fund.
It is a hot area to watch right now. A lot of evolution in the space. Morgan, if someone's listening to this right now and they're saying to themselves, I want to kick the tires over there. I have a great strategy I've kind of been working on my own for a while. I want to kick the tires and light the fires, as they say. Where should they go? What should they do? How does that process work?
Yeah, we'd be happy to set them up. They can register and start using it immediately with just a couple of keystrokes and a few seconds of their time on cloudquant.com. And then, of course, we encourage them to follow us on social media at CloudQuant and at Slade. And we also have a very active kind of LinkedIn page as well. And we certainly publish a lot of content about our industry and quantitative trading. And we hope that that's a value to them as well.
And Morgan, we obviously touched on a lot of different facets of the platform right now, but I'd like to leave the audience with something to look forward to, a little bit of a hint, a little bit of a tease of what they can expect from you guys in the coming months. So have at it, sir. The floor is yours. What can people expect coming from you guys in the coming months?
Well, one of the things we found, as I mentioned earlier, is that it's challenging for a single person to build all the different pieces of a systematic strategy from start to finish. And so we break it up into three pieces. There's a prediction element where you're trying to decide whether to buy or sell something. And then there's a risk sizing element. And then there's a trade execution element. We're actually going to be simplifying things for our users. Instead of, letting them try and build all of those things themselves, we're going to break them up into pieces and let them, work on something that instead of shooting a 3-pointer, it's going to be like shooting a layup. We want to see everybody succeed. And we think that we can get a higher percentage of the people in our community to contribute their good ideas if we let them, scooch a little bit closer to the hoop and shoot a little bit shorter shot. And so we're going to be bringing a lot of new data sets and things that they normally wouldn't have access to the platform. And in return, we want them to help us, explore some of these data sets that nobody's even looked at. And so that's one of the things that we're going to be bringing in the next year or two is the ability to look at really novel data sets. And also for the data scientists out there, we have some new tools that are more geared towards, data scientists that above and beyond just the backtesting tools that we're going to make available.
Well, Morgan, thanks for coming on. We'll look forward to seeing how all this unfolds over there at CloudQuant in the coming months.
Thank you, Mark.
And thank you for listening, and stay tuned for more episodes of Options Insider Radio coming at you very soon.
The Options Insider Radio Network is sponsored by Fidelity Investments. Fidelity's Option Trade Builder tool can help you confidently build an options trade in 3 simple steps. Just choose a strategy, select a contract, and then review the benefits and risks of the trade. Learn more about Option Trade Builder at fidelity.com/options. Options trading entails significant risk and is not appropriate for all investors. Certain complex option strategies carry additional risk. Before trading options, contact Fidelity Investments by calling 800-544-5115 to receive a copy of the characteristics and risks of standardized options. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE SIPC.